Hey there, welcome back to True North Reviews. My name is Ryan, and today we're doing a little review of the new Nick Waterhouse album. This one is self-titled, hence why it is named after the artist. You may know Nick Waterhouse from the Acura car commercials from the early 2010s, as his breakout single Say I Wanna Know was featured on them. Nick is Los Angeles born, he's an R&B singer-songwriter. He's collaborated with his contemporary Leon Bridges on a song called Kachi, which charted well once it was given the electronic dance overhaul. Waterhouse, in addition to putting out 4 strong records, including this one I'm talking about right now, has had a very quiet and humble trajectory in his discography. His sophomore album from 2014, Holly, is easily one of the most underrated projects from the 2010s, at least of the R&B variety. On this album, there's no shortage of sporadic saxophone solos or a perfectly timed guitar solo. Nothing virtuosic, very simplistic, as Nick has emphasized his stylistic choices based on the rhythm and blues more than the soul aspect. He has said in an interview that I've linked down below in the description that soul is a genre that is ascribed to a specific time, not for him or cute ad agencies to appropriate the values or conventions behind something that has typically been dominated by African Americans. Maybe these remarks have led to a reclassification of his genre, as on iTunes this new self-titled release is considered rock. Not to say that Nick's sound has changed in any way. It's still influenced by Van Morrison, early Rolling Stones, even some of the R&B arrangements of CCR. It's just that for a while Nick's guitar playing was in a bit of a gray area for the definition. As far as the album goes lyrically, there are plenty of themes revolving around government failure, fascism, love affairs, moral compasses, just a whole lot of personal opinions that Nick believes in, hence the self-titled aspect of this release. Even the album cover features a close friend to Nick who's playing the congas, someone who he has collaborated with on every project to this day, and he wants to make sure that he's giving him a little more credit, as the congas are very underrated. As far as the basic details go, this project has 11 tracks, it runs 37 minutes, it flies by like nothing. There's a wide variety of instruments on here, including a brass section that is never really in tune, but that's the beauty of it because they all record together, I believe. Gives it that raw and live setting kind of aesthetic. We also hear piano, drums, guitar, saxophone, both baritone and tenor. We get some flutes and we get some backup vocalists who are of the female gospel variety. Outside this, we also get some auxiliary percussion, as I mentioned before, the congas, and we get some tambourine. For the performance, the guitar playing is solid. We have some diverse playing styles, some of it jangly on the track Song for Winners, some of it being muted in order to shift the melodic focus to the bass. That specifically comes on the cut Which Was Writ, and we get some guitar playing that makes it sound like there's some call and response or layered texture between the keyboard. That notably comes on the song Man Leaves Town. As for slower or more serene cuts, you can find the sweetest of those on Thought and Act, one that sees Nick move away from his raspy brand of vocals and he substitutes it with more of a sappy or over-sentimental delivery. The song also makes use of very little lyrics, but for something that would seem like it's a complete snooze fest on paper with the tempo and composition, it's really a highlight on this project, and the flute rounds out the melodic kind of flavor on this track. Speaking about the other orchestral instruments you'll find on here, they have their moment to shine on the track Wherever She Goes, She Is Wanted. This one is the closing track. It has a bit more of a Motown influence. One of the catchier songs on the record, it layers in these horns with authority and closes out the narrative with something that is hard not to smile at. If you're looking for some playful chemistry between the band, look no further than El Viv. This is a track I'd recommend if you want to hear like a jam session between piano and guitar. Although repetitive, the stop and start playing is reminiscent to Time's All Gone Part 1 and Part 2 from the debut record. And really, the instrumental itself is as bright and as cheerful as Lucky once was on the previous Nick Waterhouse album Never Twice. So as many comparisons as I just made to the older Nick Waterhouse albums, I feel like we're getting a more insightful or crude look at love. With this argument, the song that comes to mind is Wreck the Rod, an easy starting point for this album as it is the infectiously catchy single. Nick on here states that love is a gamble, love is a trap, love is a lovely suicide pact. Something that I'd never really thought about before. It's pretty true if you ask me. Not to paint love in a negative light, as there are plenty of upsides to it, but unless both parties are dedicated, there's really no purpose to pursuing it. Even though this album finds itself critical of government or personal relationships, it definitely ends on a blissful note, and if you're in a bad mood or it's just a rainy day outside, I think this album would be right for you. Some of the downsides to this album just come from the lack of variation with the vocal delivery, and yes, I did compliment it earlier, but on a track like I Feel an Urge Coming coming on. I feel like we've heard this verse delivery before on an older kind of Nick Waterhouse song, and not just once, it's been on numerous occasions now. Not that it's derivative, it's more just of his own work that he's kind of ripping off. The horns are also a little underwhelming on Undedicated. I thought this track could have been a bit more focused on the guitar, as there's an interesting descending lick on here. But for the most part, when the guitar isn't sticking out this backseat style of play, it doesn't really clash with any of the other instruments. Instead, it adds to the rich palette of what is being presented on this album. Notably, there are many improvements in the production department. I feel like it's higher quality all around, as Paul Butler is the producer this time. The horns sound a lot crisper and they bite through with authority. The keyboards have a brighter soundscape to them, and the drums are fuller and resonating. Altogether, tracks 6 through 11 rival some of Nick's best work to date. I could say a lot of these songs could easily go toe-to-toe with This Is a Game, I Can Only Give You Everything, or The Old Place. Overall, I'm pleased with the collection of songs that we're getting on here. It's another solid entry into the Nick Waterhouse discography, not quite as good as Holly or the debut record, but I give props to Nick for regaining form and showcasing his brand and style of R&B in this clean package. I'm feeling an 8 out of 10 on this record. Now tell me what you thought of it. Sound off down below in the comments, leave a like, subscribe if you're new in town. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a rockin' day.